Savvy Spotlight is a monthly feature introducing foreign and Japanese women at the front line of what's successful, contributing, cool, unique, and interesting in Japan. Today, we're shining the spotlight on Cynthia Usui, a woman whose career reinvention story defies every rulebook and proves it's never too late to write a new chapter in your career.
My name is Cynthia Usui. I was born in Manila and I came to Tokyo as a Monbusho scholar in 1980. I was 20 years old then. I turned 66 years old this month. Life in Japan, it has been 40 odd years for me.
What first brought you to Japan, and how did your career and family life unfold here?
I guess I'm very unusual because I'm the housewife who went back to work. So I call myself the Cinderella of stay-at-home moms. I studied Japanese for a year in Fuchu, and then I went on to Tokyo University of Foreign Studies and majored in Japanese. I worked for I think 2 years, married a Japanese diplomat, became a Japanese national, had a daughter. Having a daughter really changed my life. For 17 years, I was a stay-at-home mom, and then at the age of 47, I went back to work first in Bangkok. I came back to Japan in 2011. I was 52 years old then. Although I'm bilingual, fluent in Japanese and English, I could not find a job. I would buy the Monday edition of the Japan Times and go through the classified ads. But I was very lucky. I found the website of the Tokyo American Club. They hired me to be a junior banquet coordinator at 1,300 yen an hour. So I did that for a year. I moved on to the ANA Intercontinental Tokyo, thinking I would be doing events. But as it turned out, on my first day, they told me that I would be doing corporate sales for rooms. So I went in as sales manager. The following year, I was promoted to senior sales manager. By the third year, I was assistant director for new business development. And then in my fourth year, I switched to the luxury hotel Shangri-La in Tokyo. And I was there very briefly because I had gotten the job of senior manager for hospitality for Coca-Cola for the Olympic Games. As we all know, there was the pandemic. The Olympic Games were postponed, so I was laid off at the end of 2020. While waiting around, I took on the job of a supermarket cashier. So I did this while I was waiting for the job market to open up. And while I was waiting, there was an investment company in Macau who had bought 3 small buildings in Tokyo during COVID, and they wanted to turn these small buildings into hotels. I took on that job. So in 9 months, I opened 3 small hotels. I left because the people I hired were doing the job so well that I figured they could do my job and get a raise, and I could go and do something else. 63, I was very lucky. I joined Salesforce as an event manager, and last month I retired. On the side, I published 3 books. I'm a political commentator as well, and I advocate for women going back to work. And these days, I'm a big advocate for career breaks.
What would you say is your greatest personal or professional strength?
I guess my biggest asset is I'm able to start from a blank sheet. In Japanese, they would say shoshin ni modoru, okay, to start from the beginning. Having a fancy job, having a fancy title, I mean, all these things are good, but at the same time, I think that they can hold people back from new experiences. I gave up a really great job in advertising to become a stay-at-home mom. The 17 years that I spent raising my daughter were the happiest years of my life. I'd gladly give up everything that I have now to get those 17 years back. But, you know, children grow up. She went off to become an adult. I cannot keep on holding on to that. And starting from scratch at 52, way back in 2011, was nothing. It was very, very difficult. So it's either I took on what was offered or I didn't go anywhere at all. So if I took whatever is in front of me, that could lead to something else. Whereas if I turned that down and stayed home and I don't know, I guess I could go to a different restaurant every day. That is not going to lead to my next job. So I'm a firm believer of starting from zero. And I don't know, I guess I have enough confidence in my abilities that I always believe that once I get my foot in the door, I would be able to prove myself.
How did becoming a mother shape your choices? And how did you approach returning to the workforce after such a long break?
I truly was brought up to believe I could have it all. I got my fantastic career. I got married. When I had my daughter, I guess I realized that, I need to make a choice. And I chose to have my daughter. I think my mindset was, okay, I did not just become a stay-at-home mom. I actually switched jobs to becoming a stay-at-home mom. So I actually created a job description for myself of what it means to be a stay-at-home mom. That the objective of my staying home was to be with my daughter. I had a schedule where I finished all the house tasks, the cooking and the cleaning and all that stuff. I finished all of that by 2 o'clock because 2 o'clock is when I went to pick up my daughter. And from the minute we saw each other to the minute she went to bed, it was time spent with her. So I was very, very good with my time management. So going back to work for me was not that difficult. She's already in college. A lot of people say, well, you were overqualified for the first job that you took. But again, I always say, if you're looking to get back to work, you really should look at the job market. People think, okay, what is it that I like to do? But when you go down that road of what you like to do, you're actually ignoring the business needs. So I was very lucky, I was very pragmatic. I realized this quickly enough. I took the first job that was offered to me, and then I went to an industry that was booming and that was growing and that had a lot of jobs. So it's very easy to grow your career if the industry you're in is growing. So now that I'm 66 and I'm looking back, I guess I can say that I actually have it all. I just didn't have it all at the same time. So I really focused. My priorities were very, very clear. And I'm glad that I did that because looking back, I now realize that I didn't give up anything. I actually now have every single thing that I've ever wanted when I was growing up. So I played the long game.
What is your approach to work-life balance?
The current definition of work-life balance is a gymnast on a balance beam where you're walking and once you fall off, you're out of the game. I refuse to accept that definition. So I made my own definition of work-life balance, which is playing the long game. There is a study, I think the IMF recently came out with a study that says, the people who are in their 70s right now, their health and their capabilities are comparable to the people in their 50s 10, 20 years ago. Why are we cramming everything into our 30s and 40s when our lifespan has grown by at least 10 years? So why aren't we saying, what, I'm taking it easy. I'm slowing down in my 30s and then I'm speeding up in my late 40s or 50s. It certainly worked for me, and it's working for a lot of women who have returned to work in Japan in their late 40s. So I don't see why this cannot be the third option.
What mindset or skills have helped you adapt to new industries and roles throughout your career?
I think the most important thing here is you have to have the ability to learn. You have to have what they call a growth mindset. Going into a different company means that you're using different tools. I think this is something that I'm very good at. I came to Japan at the age of 20, learned a new language, And then I married a Japanese diplomat, and we moved around every 3 years. It was a new city in a new country, and I had to rebuild everything. So I just got used to, putting things aside and rebuilding. So I think this mindset is what I have when I went back to work. So for me, there's almost always that rush, to get promoted, to get more money, to get a better title. It's faster if you switched companies. And so for me, when I join a company, from day one, I already know that I will be heading towards the exit at some point in time. So from day one, I'm in a hurry to learn and to acquire whatever it is that I can take to my next role. Being able to switch jobs and switch industries, I think the key thing here is to be able to unlearn things and learn new skills.
How did you navigate being laid off during the pandemic and stepping into a completely different job?
So yes, when you get laid off, it's not very pleasant. First thing that enters your mind is, why me? What did I do wrong? But sometimes it's not you, okay? It happens. I try not to go into the what do I like to do? Making decisions based on what you like, especially in terms of employment, you're ignoring the market. Maybe I would like to sing, but am I good at singing? Is there a market for singers? So I'm always very conscious of what the market is like. So when I was laid off at the age of 62, the first thing that I did was I researched the industry. So what jobs are available to 60-year-olds on my Navi, internet sites? And I discovered the 3Ks, okay? The 3Ks were Koori, retail, or Kaigo, nursing, or KB, security. Okay, out of the three, which one can I do? And I figured I'm very good at sales, so sales equals retail, right? So I decided, okay, I'll go into retail. I'll go and apply to be a supermarket cashier. So I go in for the interview. The store manager he was in his 40s, he was very young, and we got on very well. And at the end of the interview, I sort of joked and said, so am I hired? And he said, well, can you give me a week? I said, oh, okay. So then I go home, 4 o'clock the same day, I get a call from him, and he says, you're hired. So I was very happy because at 60 something, I get hired on the day. So this does a lot for your confidence. You don't really know how difficult a job is until you do it. So we look at cashiers and we figure, that's probably, you're just sliding things, scanning things. You probably think that's really easy. That's not the case, because while the cashier is scanning, I'm also thinking of how does it go into the bag? Because this was a sort of a high-scale supermarket where we did the packing for you as well. So as I'm scanning, I'm thinking which items go to the bottom of the bag, which ones go to the top. And then for payment, and this is where Japan can drive you crazy, there's a different process for each way you pay. And then there's the point system. Do you want to use your point? Do you want to save your points? So it's really not as simple as people think. Most corporate jobs, you go in, you have a boot camp for a week where you train. But supermarket cashiers, it's on the job from day one. So you're learning to be a cashier while there are 10 people lined up in front of you. So at 62, I was able to learn this, and I said to the store manager, my added value was I can work in the evenings, I can work on the weekends, I can work on Christmas Day, I can work during New Year's. So I was a very valuable employee to him. So in fact, that's what I did. I worked on Christmas Day, I worked during the New Year holidays, and then I was really happy because when somebody called in sick for work, he actually called me to sub. So that means I must be pretty good. So I'm at 62, be able to learn a new skill. I was really, really proud of myself. Anybody who's suffering from a bit of low confidence now, go be a supermarket cashier and give it a try.
What advice do you have for women returning to work later in life?
The advice that people give, follow your passion, do what you like. I really think that's for the birds. But seriously speaking, I think that kind of advice comes from a position of entitlement. Not everybody, can find work where they are fulfilled. For a lot of us, work is, what puts food on the table. So to tell people that, go and follow your passion is, I think, the worst advice that one can give somebody who's trying to return to the workforce, especially for women in their 50s. I mean, if you're in your 50s and you've been away for a while, the world is not your oyster. I mean, you need to start from somewhere. And I always say, if you're good, you can start from the very bottom, and soon enough you will rise to the top. It's an amazing time to be a young person right now, because there are so many choices. With choice comes responsibility, because you need to study the choices, and then you need to pick one, okay, and throw out the rest. It's like having 10 handbags. You're not going to go out with 10 handbags, so you choose one and then you go. If you can work and parent at the same time, good for you. If you can't, don't kill yourself trying to do it, because life is long. There's enough time to rebuild your career. Now, when you have to rebuild your career, we all tend to focus on going back to what we are used to, because that's comfortable. But then if we all went back to what we are used to, there are so many companies right now who didn't exist 20 years ago. And my biggest advice is, you should think of, I think of my career as the map of Tokyo Metro. Several trains, with the trains intersecting each other at whatever point. Just go to the train station, get onto any train that happens to stop in front of you, and then, as you're going along, you'll see the scenery, you'll see the people who are on the train with you, and if you figure you don't like it, you can switch trains. So don't even think of the destination at this point. Just get on the train. And then as you're traveling, as the ride goes on, you're bound to learn something about yourself. You're bound to learn something about the environment. As Nike says, just do it.
How have your goals or priorities evolved as you've entered this stage of your life?
When I turned 60, I started doing what I call a life check. You know how when we go for physical exams once a year, right? So I do a life exam on New Year's Eve. There are 3 things that I check. First, I check my finances. Do I have enough money? Will I outlive my money? I did this when I was 60, and I figured I will never outlive my money. Knowing this is truly very liberating, because I'm no longer constrained by money. I can actually go and do whatever I like, whether it brings me money or not, that's okay. And then the second thing is my physical health. Will I be able to walk in my 70s, 80s, or 90s? And I realized that to maintain my fitness level right now, I really need to be spending more time exercising or going to the gym instead of working. I probably should find work that will involve a lot of physical activity instead of just sitting at a desk. And then the third thing is, why am I getting up in the morning? So this third question is, I think, where I got stuck. Freedom can be a very scary thing, because when you're free, you don't really know what to do with your freedom. Well, at least I don't know. I did some reading on mattering, which is, having meaning to someone else's life, to matter to someone. Then I thought, okay, maybe to have to be happy in my 70s and 80s, I need to matter to someone or to some people or to a society. And that's when I thought about it, and it sort of naturally led me to the NPO that I have been supporting the past few years. And this is an NPO, Single Mothers Forum, that's supporting single mothers and their children. So I've been doing this for more than a year now. So I have 2 main projects for this NPO. The first one is in the summer. I find companies to work with me to give children from single parent families a chance to have a summer vacation. We did a survey, and a lot of the kids did not like summer vacation because most kids would go off and do something special, and they never did. So when they went back to school, they feel left out because they didn't do anything special. So the first year when I did this, I worked with Tokyo Station Hotel, and they hosted 25 mother and child for a lunch and a course on table manners and a tour of the hotel. So that was really good because it opened kids to the possibility of a career in a hotel. And then I have the winter part where we use the Furusato Noze system, where we get people to participate in the Furusato Noze, and the gift from the tax, instead of going to the person who did the donation, it would go to the single mothers. So this was really good. In fact, the rice, 4 tons, so that's 4,000 kilos, I think, of rice was just probably a couple of weeks ago delivered to about 800 single-family homes. So for me, there's work, and then there's my extracurricular activities. So my extracurricular activities, helping single mothers and their children. And then the other one is I'm really a big advocate for people going back to work. So I'm a great believer of career breaks. I don't like the word so much because, it's almost like if you become a stay-at-home mom, so you're actually leaving a career. I think it's a continuous thing. So, basically a career is one big thing. But, for purposes of making the current environment understand this, so women who leave paid work are defined as women who have career breaks. I'm a great advocate for women with career breaks. In fact, I think that men should be taking career breaks too, because now that we're living longer, it's really not natural to be working from your 20s to your 70s. 50 years of continuously working is not healthy. It's not natural. I took a break from a paid career to take care of my daughter. But you can take a break for any reason. Maybe you want to go back to school. Maybe you want to spend time with your aging parents. Maybe you want to take care of you don't need to justify taking a break from a paid career, but you need to plan for it. Okay, so the biggest disadvantage to taking a career break is you will not have any income. So as long as you plan for this, you can take a career break. And again, we are in a country with a declining population. There will always be a job to go back to. It may not be the same as the job that you just left, but it's a start. And if you're good, a start is all you need.
What advice would you offer to trailing spouses who wish to pursue their own careers?
I was a trailing spouse. Because I married somebody who was in the Japanese foreign ministry. Basically, I went wherever he went. We sort of don't really appreciate the roles that trailing spouses have, but I always used to think that it's a lot easier for the person with the job because you go into an organization and you're working from day one, whereas I'm going into a country, into a city where I need to make a home from nothing, so it's looking for the apartment. It is a job. Unknowingly, I developed skills there. It's just that these are the skills that companies don't recognize. So I guess the point is to make these companies recognize those skills. And again, in Japan, we're very lucky. There's a labor shortage. So, companies are recognizing those skills. And then once you have women like me who have gone back to work, they sort of see that, and that's the example. So every single woman, every single stay-at-home mom who goes back to work, every trailing spouse who goes back to work is a social pioneer, because you are actually creating the path for the next person to follow you. each woman coming back to work is really widening the path for the women following behind there. So it's never been easier for a trading spouse to come back to work. Now, if you're here in Japan, you probably will not be able to work for visa purposes, but I would say that, learn the language. Learn the language to the point that you're so proficient with it, because you never know when things are going to change. Okay, so learn the language, learn a skill, go and volunteer to use that skill. And again, I'm proficient at learning all these IT tools because I'm actually using it. So learning Excel will not make you proficient unless you're using it. So I suggest that you look for opportunities to use those skills. Make yourself useful.
What message do you want women to take from your latest book?
So the title of my third book actually is, it's your life, so it's your decision. I don't know what it is, but women really tend to put themselves last. We have come this far to say that women have all the choices, you can be whatever you want, but there is something about women that, they tend to put themselves last. So if you're in a room full of people where drinks are being served, you can be sure about it. It's the women who will get up and serve the drinks. For some reason, it's not the men, it's the women. So I always say that, as women, we need to be conscious that we're doing this. And so sometimes we just need to keep on reminding ourselves that, this is my life, this is my decision. I'm not listening to the other people around me. And so, for example, I was a trading spouse, and at some point I made the decision that I'm not going to go with my husband's next posting. I need to give myself the chance to take on the leading role. I've been the supporting role for a really long time, and I know that I can have the leading role too. So now it's my time to take the leading role. So these are the decisions that I think women need to make. At some point in their lives, they need to say, okay, that's it. I've done all the support, especially for women, older women, okay? I think at some point they need to say, okay, that's it. I've spent this much of my life supporting everybody else, so now it's going to be all about me. And that's not being selfish. That's just, giving yourself a chance. So, I do believe that, independence at 50 can be really, really good.
What is your Japan travel tip?
Get on the train and go out of Tokyo, because that's probably the best experience you will have of Japan. Getting out of Tokyo and looking around and seeing how regular people live. Because the center of Tokyo is not Tokyo. So that's the sad thing. I was, because we were out of Japan the whole time. So for me, I really like staying at home, because I found, I live by the water. So I really enjoy just looking at the water. That's my zen. And today's International Women's Day. So as you can see, women who have had career breaks are able to come back and have a career. And my message has always been, career breaks do not break careers. And today you're gonna see a lot of women who have taken career break and their careers are not broken.
I read Cynthia's book and I was so inspired and I wanted to see her, so I came here. I think I want to make connection to other women who are already working, who are looking for a job. I want to belong to that community.
Find our past Savvy Spotlight features over on our site at savvytokyo.com. For new and upcoming features on more inspiring women in Japan, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. If you have anyone in mind you'd like us to interview, please leave us a comment with your recommendations.